Hi guys, Garett of Air Rifle Evolution with the second video in the series on how to shoot accurately. Remember, this is just the basics. I know some guys are at the bottom of the comments going to say to me, but Garett, there is so much more. And yes, you are right, there are so much more. But remember, this is just the basics. So, in the previous video, I said you get the correct equipment. So you have a sturdy table, you have a very nice comfortable chair to sit in, and you have some other kind of rifle support. And as promised today, I want to give you some advice on trigger pull. Well, it's actually ironic. Some people call it trigger control, other people call it trigger pull. And then when they coach you, they say, don't pull the trigger, you need to squeeze the trigger. It is what it is in English, but yeah, guys, this is most probably one of the biggest issues when it comes to accuracy. It is trigger control. So, guys, I'm a left-hander, so please bear with me for 2 seconds. My favorite go-to gun, the Nova Vista. When I pull the trigger, I need to pull it the same way, squeeze it the same way the whole time. So when I load my gun and I pull the trigger, the only thing that should move is my trigger finger. Some guys will say to you, you need to pull the trigger with the tip of your fingertip. Some guys will say to you, no, at the first bend in your trigger, that is where you pull the trigger. Some guys will say to you, you try and pull the trigger as far back as possible. You need to find yourself your comfortable spot. There are a lot of tricks in the trade. I, for instance, met a bench rester called Chris. He said to me that he puts the trigger guard, back of the trigger guard, against the lower portion of his trigger finger. And that forces him to just use that part of the trigger finger to squeeze the trigger, and nothing else happens. Garett, I might have a problem with my trigger pressure, or my trigger control, or my squeezing of a trigger, or the pulling of the trigger. How do I solve this? Well, number one, you can get somebody standing behind you while you are shooting, and they will very quickly say to you whether your gun moves while you are squeezing the trigger or not. I have a little bit of an exercise for you. Now, this is when my wife should sit next to me, but she said to me, Garett, I'm not going to be in your shooting videos because I actually need her arm. So I'm going to use my own. All right. Because I'm left-handed, this is my trigger finger, my trigger hand. What you now need to do with both elbows on the table, grasp with your trigger hand, your non-trigger hand on the pulse, the wrist, like this. I'm going to show you a close-up just now. All right. And then I'm just tilting my hand so you can see. My trigger finger is in the palm of my opposite hand. So what you do now is you hold, and as if you're squeezing the trigger of that gun, you squeeze the palm of your hand. I'll show you close up just now. Squeeze the palm of your hand. And you will quickly feel whether there is extra tension on your wrist because your rest of the hand is closing as well. Or you are pulling up while your trigger finger is pushing down. Or there is some other movement with your pinky or your thumb or your whatever. All right, so this is what you do close up. Partner's hand or your non-trigger hand. Grip the wrist nice and firmly. Not too tight. You're not trying to squeeze the blood flow off to the hand. Trigger finger in the palm of the hand. Now, while squeezing, see I'm squeezing. The only thing that moves is that trigger finger, nothing else. So when I have my gun here, Same way. Take the wrist of the person's hand. Hold not tightly, don't try and squeeze the life out of it. And squeeze the trigger, concentrating that it's only the trigger that moves. Garett, I've tried this and I can't feel that my hand is moving. Well, then you need to get a partner whose hand you take in this fashion, and they will quickly tell you whether the rest of your hand is moving or not. Something I forgot to tell you about the first video. Accuracy is all about consistency. So, if you pull the trigger one way and you feel it works for you, you need to practice to pull the trigger exactly the same way all the time. Remember, there is one thing that I can tell you. You do not do with the trigger. You don't jerk the trigger. The only thing that moves when you are squeezing the trigger is your trigger finger. So now this is the end of the second video. So now you have a sturdy table, comfortable chair, you have some other kind of rest, and you are going to hold on to somebody's wrist for a long time, practicing your trigger control. Once you do that, you go fetch your gun, you go to the shooting range where I hope to meet you, and you go sit on your comfortable chair in your sturdy table with your wrist, and you focus on squeezing the trigger exactly the same way all the time. Some advice, gentlemen: do not be intimidated by other people at the shooting range shooting 50, 60, 70, 80 meters with an air rifle. You start at 15 or 20 meters and you coach yourself to be accurate. In the next video, I'm going to talk to you about cheek pressure on the rifle stock. Well, until then, please be safe. Please uphold the law of your country. I hope to see you on the shooting range one of these days. God bless. Bye-bye.